Aristotle. Aristotle was a virtue ethics guy. Rather, he was the virtue ethics guy. He came up with it, if you could believe it. He did not have super hard and fast guidelines or principles on what was right or wrong, but generally believed in like balance and temperance and justice and whatever, which is what makes this fun, is that we get to interpret things. So first things first is we define sort of what our framework is for Aristotle. Aristotle had a focus on character. Rightness will follow being a good person. He defines a virtuous person as balanced for the most part, as an active quality and a balanced quality. He believes that humans have a natural desire to be virtuous and that the goal is happiness, which is achieved through a virtuous life. Virtue is the golden mean, which exists as a balanced manifestation of a trait instead of excess or deficiency. You know, cowardice versus recklessness. The golden mean would be courage. The stable equilibrium of the soul is what he called it. Virtue is an actively maintained state, not passive. It is not a passive quality one has, but rather something that someone actively chooses every moment. And it's very tangible in situations and choice-based. No abstract virtue because it is achieved through actions. The important part here is active choice and golden mean. We want balance and we want it to be intentional, basically. And that virtue leads to happiness. So, question of the hour. Where do boyfriend POV, K-pop boy band TikToks fall on the Aristotle virtue spectrum? Because that's what we're all wondering, obviously. One important piece of context for K-pop boyfriend POV TikToks, if you are of the uninitiated, is that there's oftentimes an open acknowledgement of the audience that the members of this boy band were likely forced to film this or felt like they couldn't say no, or some manager was just like, guys, get over here, or something of that sort, because a lot of the comments end up being along the lines of y'all's bills cannot be this high. Typically, while most people understand that artists do not always agree with their companies and sometimes have to do things they rather wouldn't, there is still a level of implied consent by virtue of being in the video. And another delineation we're going to make is between official company posting versus fan content. Company posts have far more influence on fan culture as both an authority figure in the community and as one of the limited sources of original creations involving the members, while fan content is often remixes or recreations of the company released materials. And so we have a lot of very blatant examples from the official Enhypen K-pop company Belift Lab TikTok page, where it's just literally like, POV, this is your boyfriend. Like, look, it's him. POV, it's your boyfriend. It's him. He's here. Like, look, he's pretending to drive a car. He's looking out a window. Who wants him? There's a lot of stuff like that. But one thing I want to talk about in this video is what else counts as self-insert content. So it does not help that the official group lore is that the 7 of them are obsessed with and traveling with one extremely descriptionless girl. This whole faceless girl bit in multiple trailers and promotional videos is like an ongoing thing. They've had one even in the most recent comeback that was just like a week ago at this point. What day is it? This creates an interesting question, to me at least, which is how different are these high budget acted videos from the Tic Tac BF POV. Jesus. The TikTok boyfriend POV videos. I think the biggest difference is that the TikTok POV BF stuff drops the subtext and says the quiet part out loud. The subtext of the faceless girl in the short film-esque plot lore, whatever the hell, that has all 7 dudes pining after her is, you know, in context with the lyrics and the other marketing material. The constant assurance and appearance of the members being single is that you, the presumably young female audience member, are going to project onto the girls a self-insert, and every element of the experience has been structured to facilitate it. But it's subtext. It's subtextual self-insert content. content instead of overt self-insert content like much of the social media marketing sometimes is. This is a small tangent that is kind of unrelated to everything around it, but I did want to mention that one thing that sort of frustrates me about Enhypen is that they clearly have like a very brilliant and skilled creative team. They've worked with some very skilled directors and producers, and yet it all goes toward recycling the same self-insert lore. I really wish we could see some of this skill applied to new concepts and storylines and themes, because it would just be cool. Like, it would be really cool to see what these people can do when they're not like shackled by the constraints of y/n self-insert. It strikes art house brilliance sometimes, actually, with the cinematography and composition before getting shackled back down by the harem. Some of my favorite shots from the Dark Blood trailer and the Orange Blood trailer are like the chairs in the circle and whatever was going on with the orange lighting in that room. This director, he's goated. He did the Orange Blood trailer also, as well as the Dark Blood trailer. Plus, he did, I think, Le Seraphim's Easy trailer and Illich's Not Cute Anymore music video, and I love his stuff. I think they should let him do an entire music video for Enhypen because it would eat down everything he makes. Has like exquisite color grading. It's so good. It's so good. They need to free him. Free my man. Longtime haters will know that I have made a video on Enhypen before about the parasocial boyfriend marketing going on there, and this is sort of an expounding upon that. That's not required reading for this video. You don't need to go look at it. I would hypothetically put up everything you need to see. My point is, a few things have been released since my last video on this topic, so let's go through the major ones. First up is N-Drama, which dropped back in late 2024, I believe, which was like a couple months or like a month after my video, so that was really nice of them to wait. That was so kind of them. For the sake of this video and being generally informed on what the hell I'm talking about, I figured I should watch the N-Drama from start to finish. This is big for me because I have previously avoided this thing like the plague, other than the SFX-less clip of Heesung swinging on that guy. But I did it. I did it for you. But there's a lot of like significant things in this. Like in the very first episode, they have a line of dialogue where they're like, wow, it's so crazy that we're all single, which is like an extremely direct, just starting straight off strong by reaffirming availability for the audience, just right on the nose. And Eunjin, the girl of the hour in the N-Drama, the name of our first person POV camera, is conveniently a Korean girl who has spent time living abroad in America for reasons I'm sure are entirely unrelated to their fandom demographics. It's also once again set in high school. 5 guesses why. They also turned the reverse harem webtoon, also set in a high school, into an anime that's airing right now as I'm recording this, and the first 3 episodes are up. So I went and I watched it. Dark Moon the Blood Altar. Quite the name, but it is vampires. The show made all 7 boys around the same age to skirt around the issue of at least 3 of them being underage when this comic started running, so they just made them all vampire high schoolers. To the show's extremely minor credit, the show chooses to make the characters meant to represent the 2 youngest members of the group more kept to the sidelines than the other ones, which is not much, frankly, but like it could have been worse, I guess, is my point. This show chooses to make each male character a stand-in version rather than the member themselves, and I can't remember which one is which for the life of me, so I'll probably like put up a graph for you so you can see a chart. Let's get a chart in here. This approach creates the kind of interesting situation of the characters being explicitly stated as stand-ins for each member in much of the marketing material, while each Dark Moon, the Blood Altar boy, has a different face, name, past, age, personality, and everything else than their real-life counterpart. It's out of the ordinary to make self-insert content of someone without using their likeness. I suspect, as pure conjecture, that this was a choice made to give the writers and artists on the project freedom to not have to worry about how they were representing a real person and go more wild with the plot and characters and how the story played out. But it does put the show in a weird space of being a self-insert reverse harem anime based on Enhypen, while not having Enhypen. They all have the vampire base build plus one special power, a la Twilight. There are werewolves too, also a la Twilight. And the werewolves are inexplicably American for some reason. And apparently are also based on members of the Japanese group under the same company and team, who have members who are on the same survival show as Enhypen and have corresponding werewolf lore. I don't know much about that. I don't know much about them. I don't know much about the werewolf lore. Werewolf war. Fuck, I don't know much about that either. But considering that this anime is more divorced from the group themselves, as well as their primary promotions, as well as ongoing, we won't linger here any longer. But you should know that this exists. You should know that the company made this and approved this. So like I said, the Sin Vanish comeback just dropped this month, January 2026, and continues much of this faceless girl business. Outlaws on the run with insert your name here. Much of the lyrical content of the album is in line with previous releases in its overt lovesick obsession over a second-person subject. In the Big Girls Don't Cry track video, there is a self-insert girl hanging out with the boys, and unlike previous concept trailers, we don't even get to see her face the entirety of the video. The progression from fully featuring an actress to hiding her and making first-person, non-voice acted short film content is interesting, to say the least. The majority of the behind-the-scenes content for the Big Girls Don't Cry track video is cropped and cut and edited so that the female actress is seen as little as possible. There'll be a cutaway right before she's about to walk into frame, or a shot will be cropped so that she's just out of sight, and if having her visible is unavoidable, then they will hide her face. To me, it's one thing to hide the face of the self-insert girl in the track video itself, but it's on a whole nother level to hide her in the behind-the-scenes content. I suspect it is equal parts for her protection and maintaining a fantasy of availability, and, you know, having zero competition as a fan for these boys' attention. It's funny because we have precedent with the Dark Moon and Dark Blood and Orange Blood. God. Dark Moon, the Blood Altar, Dark Blood, Orange Blood. 3 different things. But those 2 concept films, the actress Park Ji-won is allowed to show her face and is semi-present in behind-the-scenes materials. Kind of, not really. It's a little bit blink and you'll miss it, but she's present in the background a good amount of times, and at the very least they don't blur out or hide her face, and they let her exist in the background of certain shots, and her face is obviously in the actual concept trailer itself. She is, however, also strategically cropped out of a lot of the behind the scenes content to avoid threatening the fan base. Insert here Sung-hoon acting to empty air when she's literally right there outside the shot, she's right in front of him, but they cropped her out. That one kills me. This happens in the Orange Blood trailer video too, so in a roundabout way, the behind-the-scenes content serves as self-insert content as well, which is a whole other layer to this, of just thoroughness to maintain the fantasy, where we're gonna crop her out of the behind-the-scenes shoot of the short film she starred in and did the most acting in out of anybody. We're gonna crop her out so that we don't threaten anybody in the fan base. Obviously, right? Okay. We also have whatever was happening with the Desire Unleash marketing, which is the comeback before the most recent one. So this was June 2025. I think it was June. I'm pretty sure it was June. It might have been May, but I'm pretty sure it was June. And full disclosure, I am 100% pro weird, intense pervert shit. In art, it's actually very important to me that art sometimes makes people uncomfortable or makes it transparently obvious that something is wrong with the artist, or is just kind of serving perversion. This is a case, however, where the question of agency as well as consent, also intention, you know, did they want this, or did they just go along with it because they had to? Was the intent to make some cool weird pervert shit, or was it to galvanize an already over possessive fan base? I honestly think it would have made for better art if they had doubled down on some of the intense imagery from the concept photos instead of backsliding into safer cool guy self-insert lyrically and visually once they got to the actual title track and music video. I think you should have still made it like a little bit more aggressive the way but that's a thing in K-pop constantly, mind you, is that the concept photos are often serving a little bit harder than the final product. Whoops. Anyway, with the context of the music and the marketing and whatnot in mind, let's apply some more virtues to the situation. Oh shit. We were talking about Aristotle, remember that? Remember him? First virtue that we're going to apply to the situation is honesty. How much of this would we consider honest? How much of it would we consider truthful, transparent, not a lie? Well, a lot of this promotional material slides down into very dishonest territory. I wouldn't call it outright lying, but the audience is encouraged to view the members as both romantically available and attainable, which I do not believe is true. And I don't think you should believe that's true either. In some ways, the overt self-insert marketing is more ethical, walk with me, in that it announces itself unambiguously. It's less insidious than the more subtle self-insert characteristics of the lyrics and the lore and the photos and the concept trailers. It's much easier to see the active boyfriend POV TikToks for what they are, and therefore easier to recognize it as fantasy, as well as making the hand of the social media intern, manager, whatever, far more obvious. As we mentioned before, like when they get too overt, everyone in the comments clocks it. Everyone notices immediately when it gets a little bit too on the nose. The more subtle self-insert content is more opaque and more difficult to directly identify, and therefore is more effective at conditioning an audience into thinking and behaving in certain very overzealous and possessive ways. Most, if not all, marketing is some degree of baseline dishonest, and I would not count this as an exception by any means, but its blatantness occasionally makes it less deceptive. It's closer to the mean of honesty, but it's still not there. The way it manifests in this bizarre moment of lucidity wherein everyone involved, Enhypen, the fans, the company, all have this brief collective mask-off moment where everyone is temporarily honest about the parasocial undercurrent because it has temporarily become an overcurrent. Aristotle conceptualized virtue as active or always at work. It is a constant choice, not habit. By this understanding, the continuous choice of slightly deceitful marketing is possibly the furthest one could be from virtue, as opposed to a habit or complacency of accidental, unintentional, habitual boyfriend TikTok POVs. The fact that they are calculated makes it worse. And so it could not reasonably be viewed as force of habit or force of standard the way other, more actually standard methods of marketing could potentially be interpreted. A continuously reaffirmed strategy so principled that it is often wedged into unnatural places and included against the best interest of the art itself. Value number 2, generosity. So this one is weird because in some ways the company and marketing is very over-generous. The constant free content, comebacks every 6 to 8 months, to the point at which fan service morphs into something kind of predatory because they're trying to keep you constantly addicted and hooked, but also they give out like so much content to farm the parasocial connections that you then spend more money. So it's not really generosity because the end goal is money. This one's weird because you certainly do get a lot more behind the scenes, variety show, whatever content for them as a group, and like K-pop groups in general, this is true for them, where like you get a lot more of them for free than you do like a regular celebrity in like an American context, right? But like there's such a hefty amount of behind the scenes and variety and entertainment and vlog content for K-pop groups that it is kind of generous in a way, because it's all free. And like they do make AdSense, but like AdSense is like actually fucking pennies, to be completely honest with you. So like they're probably making like enough to cancel out production costs on that YouTube channel, but I don't think that like that's not paying the bills. So it is kind of given for free, but also it's all given with the intent of eventually getting you to spend money. So it's like both extremes. I already said that, but it's like both extremes. So they failed this one too. They're 2 strikes. Value number 3, temperance. This was one of the big ones for Aristotle. So this one is easy because the marketing encourages overindulgence, and that is like the whole issue. Give me the obvious vice stamp on that one. There's nothing temperate about what's going on here. There's nothing balanced or restrained about the approach to this, not even a little bit. So we can clear that one up right away. There is no temperance, I fear, when you are making self-insert content about someone who is not yourself, right? You're using other people's names, faces, images, public personas, likenesses to make the self-insert content as a staff member of Belief Lab. And so like there is no like temperate way to do that unless the person in question is like really all for it. And I don't really believe that's the case. Courage, temperance, and justice are Aristotle's main squeeze on the virtue market, but I find it more interesting to apply his framework to other values or virtues as we have done today, because those are hard to apply to marketing just because I think there's no real bravery or justice involved in it. When something has the explicit goal of generating goodwill to create loyalty in exchange for money that translates into wealth and power, it's kind of hard for any of that to be just or brave, because the goal it is in service of is not any of those things. There is a whisper of honesty and generosity, or at very least those concepts are easier to apply to this situation because we have a plausible argument for either of them existing in the context of K-pop marketing, whereas justice and courage, not so much. Nothing brave about a boyfriend POV TikTok except maybe the balls to post it. So, besides, we're using Aristotle's ethics as a framework to be applied, not as ultimate truth. So we don't need to live or die over it too hard here. And in my view, not Aristotle's, because I don't know what he thinks about K-pop. The ethical version of self-insert escapism fiction is one that does not invoke the likeness or reality of any actual people, or if it is inspired by a real person, enough is changed and withheld to make that fact opaque. Think Twilight. Unless I suppose the person invoked is enthusiastically agreeing and actively involved in the way they are portrayed. Everything taken together, I would not confidently claim that that is the case for the members of Enhypen, that they are enthusiastic or even truly willing participants in this most of the time. Matter of fact, I wouldn't say that in a million fucking years, but let's talk tangible harm. Let's talk the consequences of extremes. There was a break-in. Did I say that? Did I bring that up? There was a break-in. Summer 2025, not long after the Desire Unleashed comeback, there was a break-in at their dorm apartment, whatever you want to call it, where they all live. Like, somebody broke into their home while they were there. Police arrested them at the scene. They just had to deal with that until the police showed up. Like, somebody broke into their fucking house and they had to be like, oh shit, what do we do? I've had general issues with getting mobbed at the airport before, but this one it was horrible. Feels so like bad, but like also it was really funny because he like the way he like jukes her at the end of the hallway kills me. Like, he's running away from her and he gets to the end of the hall and he like hits like a 180 and goes back the other way. Like, it's horrible. It's probably no fun at all to get chased like that, but like he kind of got her ass. And then he was like moving, he was like gone. Anyway, my favorite thing to come out of this is the Jaden Aliana ASMR. She made a POV of meeting a Sunghoon Sasang in the airport literal days before the incident occurred, as if she had psychically predicted it. So that's also a bit funny to me. Like, this is such a known problem that somebody made an ASMR parody of it like before it happened. It's such a known issue, known quantity, known problem that like someone who's like from what I can tell not even into Enhypen like that managed to predict this with like 99% accuracy. And that is also because of this very well nurtured parasocial relationship that people feel entitled to do that. I cannot say with any mathematic finality that Enhypen experiences this at a greater capacity than other groups their size, and Incheon International Airport is kind of just asked for celebrities to navigate, to be fair. Enhypen is a never-ending string of someone got chased at the airport, and someone says something creepy at a fan sign, and someone is sending death threats to a woman for making eye contact with them. So my conclusion here is that are K-pop boyfriend TikTok POV marketing videos ethical according to Aristotle? And the answer is fuck no. The answer is absolutely not. It's not temperate, it's not honest, it's not courageous, it's not just. Sacrificing the well-being of a lot of people to make more money. So there's just nothing squeaky clean about that, I fear. And I think Aristotle would be with me on this one if he had any concept of a boy band. Close out, I have some thoughts on the most recent release, Sin Vanish. Fellas, I cannot believe Knife is the title track instead of No Way Back. Like, I know everybody has already said this, but like, what are we doing? Fumble of the century, you had gold in the palm of your hand. With a bridge. I haven't had one of those in a while around here. How and why did you get an absolute indie darling on the track also, if it's just a B-side? Like, what's she doing? What's my goat doing on this track if you're not even gonna promote it? The concept of an 11-song album being 23 minutes. I'm aware it's as short as it is because there's 5 interludes with narration on this 11-track album. But even if we subtract them and do a little math, the remaining 6 songs are a grand total of 15 minutes and 43 seconds. Smoke and Mirrors ass album. Okay, I do like some of these songs, and I really like No Way Back, but let's be honest with each other about this. I know they call it a mini album, but 11 tracks is still misleading. What kind of mini album is 11 tracks? And why are there 10 versions? I counted, there's like double digits. There's a member version for every member, and then there's the original one, and then there's a Korean, the original, and then there's a Japanese one, and a Chinese one, and an English one. Like, they have 11 versions of this album on Spotify. It's one thing to sell variants, but like, why would you put all 11 variants on streaming site? Like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? Why would you do that? Because I fear, like, all of the member versions only had, like, one song different, if I'm not mistaken. Like, they're not that different. Why could the member versions not be its own album? And then we could have cut this down to, like, a crisp 5 versions. I am of the opinion that the Big Girls Don't Cry / Stealer photos from their concept trailers and from their concept photos that are on the website now are infinitely more cool than whatever this is. Nothing will ever be cooler than being aesthetically interesting. And also this photo where he looks kind of like Sherlock Holmes. It's just something where, as a concept, I don't mind it, but as a way to communicate coolness, I don't think carries its weight enough. That's some load-bearing styling, and I fear it's collapsing a little. My dream outcome of this would have been No Way Back as the title track, with the Steeler visuals and a touch of Big Girls Don't Cry. Really strong blocks of blue compositionally set against brown, and this like film-esque color grading is very distinct visually and very unique for a K-pop group. Particularly like the fact that they opted for more of a orangey brown, or like a warm brown instead of a flat out orange. It hits the compliment pear sweet spot without feeling overdone. Also a huge fan of the fact that some of the photos show skin texture, pretty rare in K-pop and entertainment photo shoots. So rare in fact, that it goes away by the very next song. If we want to do this like all black vampire leather knife running from the cops bit, is like you had the chance to we should have gone more all in on that, because half the music video is just them on like a regular street with like nothing interesting happening aesthetically, where it's like what we should have done is tinted the whole thing green like the Matrix and had a scene in the club. If we had to do it this way, what we should have done is had them be in the Y2K all black sci-fi vampire underworld leather underground club. The club from the Matrix. You remember that. I'll show you. I own the Matrix on Blu-ray, so I'll show you. And while I have you here, we're gonna close out by doing a feminist critique of Big Girls Don't Cry by Enhypen, the most promoted B-side. This is originally by Aristotle, but I had to put him on hold for this, clearly. The production, I like the sample, I like the melody, I like the delivery, especially of the big dog don't bite part of the chorus. But then we get to the rest of the lyrics, and my conclusion is that these lyrics are kind of patronizing. It's so Y/N ex-CEO, don't worry kitten, daddy will take care of it. I fuck with the sample, and then it hits you with the be good and I'll take responsibility and don't ask. Like, whoa, who let this staggering lack of female agency in here? A note on part of the chorus, the chakaji, or it can be translated as either be good or be kind, as far as I can tell from cross-referencing my translations. I do not speak Korean, so if there's any subtext to that phrasing that you think I missed, feel free to lambast me in the comments below. From what I can tell, they are not necessarily telling the subject to behave, but how to behave, which I don't love. I understand that this is part of the fantasy for a lot of people, and I understand that sometimes wanting someone to take charge is very comforting for some people, but that doesn't make it feminist, at least in my view, because I am not a choice feminist. But with that said, you are allowed to like and engage with things that are not necessarily feminist, because a lot of things are not necessarily feminist, and I don't think there's any reason to limit your enjoyment or your cultural palette on that basis. I think we can critique this on the basis of feminism without telling you that you can't like it. If you like this, you like this. Hey, this song makes the brave move to introduce Pookie as an unironic part of the lyrics. Why did they make him say that? I do hypothetically like the juxtaposition of Big Girls Don't Cry and Big Dog Don't Bite as a comparison about how certain levels of maturity and strength mean holding back sometimes. You could cry or bite in a given scenario, but you are actively making the choice not to, regardless of whether or not that's the emotionally healthy thing to do. It's interesting. Agency usually is. That is not what the song is trying to communicate holistically, however. Big Girls Don't Cry reads more like those heterosexual relationships that veer into weird parental dynamic territory, favoring the man, wherein he is competent and world-weary and the woman is naive and in need of guidance. This is an age-old patriarchal dynamic that goes past consideration and loyalty and into treating women as feeble, incompetent, and childlike. There's a difference between I'll keep you safe and don't ask me any questions. And you know what else is unfeminist? Is the fact that this song is 1 minute and 58 seconds. Can you believe that? Tell you what, that is the most unfeminist thing about this track. 1 minute 58. Get out of here. If we take this in the context of the trailer concept track video thing they made, it also, alongside the performance, builds on this same framework. There's just like finger wag one of them does on the Big Girls Don't Cry line, which kind of contributes to an overall chiding vibe. In Big Girls Don't Cry, the female lead remains so strictly faceless and unintrusive that I fully didn't even realize she was there on my first viewing. We have to consider that this was promoted as their primary B-side. Usually the secondary promotional song is sort of distinct from the title track, so I understand why it wasn't Steeler since it's too similar to Knife, but I was honestly a little surprised it was chosen over No Way Back or Lost Island. No Way Back is, I dare say, objectively the better song on a technical level between the melody, production, lyrics, atmosphere, all of it, and has so far, as of recording, outperformed Big Girls Don't Cry on streaming without any of the additional promotion that Big Girls Don't Cry had, although as promotion continues, that gap could potentially close. The choice to make Big Girls Don't Cry the primary B-side reads two ways. One, it's very short and therefore easier to perform, which could be beneficial in a double promotional period. Two, the parasocial don't worry kitten daddy's here angle is something that the team finds important enough to promote. This is a bigger pattern with a lot of boy band marketing that is centered around romantic availability, not just in Enhypen. This happens in other groups. It happens more aggressively in Enhypen, but it happens in other groups where a lot of young girls especially and women feel a lot of fear when it comes to dating. There's a lot of danger for women when it comes to dating. There's no one more likely to literally fucking kill you than the guy you're dating, just statistically. So that's kind of unfun. So there's kind of this possibly willful exploitation of the fact that they have constructed a safe arena for young girls to explore their infatuation with someone. They are like so aggressively encouraging it that it starts becoming like sinister. Again, I don't think there's anything wrong with young girls or women playfully exploring and joking about communally this like shared feeling of infatuation or attraction. I don't think that itself is any kind of inherent evil or bad. I think it's the company sinking its filthy little claws into it and like latching onto that and like really hyping it up and trying to get people even more in deep and suck them dry. I think Aristotle would have a thing or two to say about that, frankly. Matter of fact, I have a few things to say about Aristotle. So for our next section, is Aristotle ethical? According to me, the sewer reaver was foreshadowing for how I feel about him. Aristotle had this whole spiel about how women were deficient or mutilated versions of men, which like source. He held that women were not sufficiently capable on their own and required the guidance of a man, which is kind of how this video came to be because I was reading the lyrics of Big Girl Don't Cry and it reminded me of my Greek philosophy nemesis. So, hubris, some would say, to mistake a lack of dedicated research towards women for an unsolvable mystery. To live in a system that denies autonomy to women at every turn, and then come to the conclusion that maybe the reason why women don't have the same status is not because they are on paper legally banned from it, but maybe they're just like that on their own. I don't know. Men aren't more knowledgeable because they receive an education and women don't. That's unrelated. Truly the mind of a genius. It's even more embarrassing because his sensei, Plato, had no such hang-ups. Aristotle fumbled all on his own. Ancient Greece was dog water for the girls, at least in Athens, which is one of, if not the most well-documented city-state and also kind of Aristotle's home turf, mostly. Athenian women could not vote, could not own property, were banned or limited from many educational institutions, and just generally did not have rights. If you weren't a priestess or a prostitute, you weren't really allowed to interact with men outside of your family, which, like, there's a metaphor in there somewhere. Spartan women could own property and could go to school and had much more freedom, so obviously you can imagine how much Aristotle hated them. Everything about Aristotle's credibility is undercut to me by the way he was just absolutely off the dome freestyling when it came to women. Zero fact-checking, zero insight. He made a point once in a while, but I'm seriously tempted to give most or all of the credit to my artistic enemy Plato. I refuse to think of someone who completely failed to investigate literally half of society to any significant extent one of the greatest minds in history. Aristotle, the professional backslider. Like I said earlier, Aristotle works better treated as a framework for thought because most of his big ideas and conclusions were various flavors of wildly incorrect. Me, when I'm phlegmatic dominant, obsessed with the niche of people applying the four humors to anime characters. That's what I'm all about if you couldn't tell. Which anime girl is the same? Which anime girl has the same excess bile as me up on Patreon now? Basically, this video is essentially a wildly complicated excuse to dunk on Aristotle and review an Enhypen and come back at the same time. Two birds stoned in a bush, or whatever the saying is. My full circle connection is that there was this mega sexist Athenian named Solon who made a bunch of laws, and one of the self-insert vampires from the anime is also named Solon. I don't think this means anything in particular, but everything is always connected.